I really love this space of working with and helping unleash the potential in other people. And I'm a firm believer in the power of companies investing in their people and really working with them because I truly believe that it is the people in any organization that differentiates it from the rest. And so it's my favorite thing to do.
And welcome to Strategic Edge, a podcast by leaders and for leaders. We're here to inform, instruct, and inspire leaders. We're going to share information about business models, about theories, but then we're also going to provide instructions. How do you apply those? How do you make them very practical? And finally, we're going to encourage you to act. My name is Ted Davis. I'll be your podcast host and your leadership coach. I have been a practitioner, a student, and a teacher of leadership now for nearly 60 years. And as my future guests and I inform, instruct, and inspire you, I encourage you to do three things. First of all, absorb what we share with you. Make it your own. Take it on. Take notes. Make it your own thoughts. Make it part of what you now believe about leadership. Number two, reflect on it. What does it mean to you? What do we affirm that you're already doing? What ideas do you pick up about how to improve? And then thirdly, we want you to commit to an action plan so you can continue to move forward. So we want you to absorb, reflect, and commit. And with that, let's start today's podcast. Well, welcome. I am so excited today to introduce today's guest, Ginine Capozzi. Did I get it right there? Capozzi.
Yep.
So we're fellow Italians. I'm Italian on my maternal side, and you're Italian on both sides of your family. So that's absolutely wonderful. And thank you so much for coming today. Just a little bit of background before you get started. You've been working in the field of talent management, talent development since 2004 for the last 20 years. So you must have started in elementary school. You regularly support new and emerging leaders in developing their leadership skills, helping them be intentional about that, which I'd love to learn about. What else would you like to share about your biography with our listening audience today?
Just that I really love this space of working with and helping unleash the potential in other people. And I'm a firm believer in the power of companies investing in their people and really working with them because I truly believe that it is the people in any organization that differentiates it from the rest. And so it's my favorite thing to do.
Oh, that is awesome. And tell us a little bit how you came about the name of your company, Knowledge Force Consulting. Tell us a little bit about that story. I love it.
Yeah. So Knowledge Force Consulting is the name of the business that I run and work out of every day. And about, I won't tell you, 12, 13 years ago, I guess it is now, my brother sent me a birthday card that said, put up or shut up. Basically, I'd been talking about starting my own business and just didn't have a business name. And so I was brainstorming and thinking about it. And a good friend of mine said to me, well, Ginine, what are you trying to do? Like, what is it that you believe? And I said, well, I don't believe that we're workforces anymore. I believe the most important thing is that companies are trying to create knowledge forces. They're trying to unleash the power of the knowledge within the people that they've got and bringing it from all over and all of those life experiences together to harness it in a different way. And my friend goes, so basically, like, you just want to be a consulting company that helps people unlock the knowledge. It's like, yeah, I want to create knowledge forces. And lo and behold, here I am. So I guess it's 12 years. It's 12 years because this week, June 12th, this week will be my 12th anniversary.
Well, congratulations. Good milestone.
Thank you.
So you are working in talent development, talent management. So tell us a little bit, what do you mean? What's your definition of talent management? And how do you go about helping leaders develop their talent?
Yeah. So for me, talent development is really just the power of having self recognition. So it's a little bit of a formula. It is individuals being able to look at and reflect upon and consider where they want to go, their own perspective on where they are and where they're trying to get to. So that's part one of the equation, some self awareness and self reflection. Part two of the equation is being positioned or put into a position within, particularly the way I work with it, within organizations that provide meaningful opportunities that steer that and unlock or unleash that talent opportunity for them. So individuals who want it, companies who bring it together, and then blending those things in a way that is strategic for both the organization and the individual. So it's not just personal development. I could go out there and personally develop and take classes and do new things for myself. And a company can just send me to training that doesn't really work or isn't intentional or strategic. And both of those things independently are fine, but they don't actually bend the arc towards what we need when it comes to actual talent development within an organization. So the combination of the two is where I think helps us hit the mark.
Wonderful. So you're helping the company and the individual, obviously, and the person's professional development. Um,
Yes.
so when our listeners reach out to you, we're going to provide them with your contact information. So when they reach out to you and they want help with talent management, talent development, what's your kind of your formula, your steps, if you will, in taking
Yeah.
them?
So first, I'm a big believer in what I refer to as strategic development. Oftentimes, companies just throw training or opportunities at an individual, and it's not strategic. It's not well thought out. It's just like, I think we should have a communication class and throw out communication class, right? And what ends up happening is it doesn't really land on driving business in any sort of direction because it wasn't intentionally thought about. And the individuals who participate in those programs might learn a thing or two, but there's no systems or mechanisms behind them to continue to re-engage and support them. And I always say, at the end of the week, I'll fall back on what I know when things get stressful and difficult versus the thing that's a little outside my comfort zone and my reach, unless I've got support systems. So I say all of that because the big, most important step from the beginning is to look at it from a strategic umbrella. What are we trying to achieve for the business? And how do we look at training and development opportunities as a way to get there? How do we get really specific and aligned on those two? So I walk customers through conversations that are more strategy oriented. And then we start to look at what do you already have available within the organization? What do you need to either curate or create? So I can go out there and get it from someone off the shelf or a conference or an experience or a YouTube video. What is it that's already out there that I could just curate? And if that isn't an opportunity and we need to do something that's specific and organization specific, then we've got to create it. And once I start doing those, it then just becomes okay, we've got the inventory of what we're going to do. Now it becomes the execution of how do we deliver upon that. And then I also help organizations really think about the systems that they have in place to support it afterwards. Oftentimes we'll push people through a training program, for example, or send them to a conference or tell them an area we want them to grow in. But we don't change any of the systems around them. And those systems are like the headwinds that prevent them from really resulting in behavior change. So it's a whole process. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like it. It sounds like you start off, as you say, step one was the strategy. Number two was the kind of inventory and planning and what's available and what should we use.
Yeah.
Then you start to execute where do they go to train, and then you do a follow up, you help the client with a follow up. How do they monitor and improve? Wonderful process,
Mhm.
and I'm sure it's been incredibly successful. Any success stories you want to share?
I always get asked this question, and I think there's just so many. But my very favorite success story goes way back. Um, One of the reasons I tend to work with middle management, and middle and frontline management. But years ago, I was working with a woman at Time Warner Cable back when they were a company, and she was a phone sales rep. And 6 months later, she went through this training program. 6 months later, I happened to be back at those offices again, and she comes running up and she's like, Janine, I've got something to tell you. My daughter's in music lessons. I was like, rack your brain for the story. Like, am I supposed to remember this? And she says, oh, no, what I mean is, since I took your training, I'm consistently hitting my bonus. And now I was able to put my daughter in music lessons. And that to me is just the power of that individual experience. Everybody won in that situation. The company won because she was doing more, giving more, moving the needle on the goals that mattered to them. But she herself won because she became the hero in her family. And who knows? Her daughter, I believe, ended up going on to music school, but I only heard that anecdotally. So,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
That's a powerful
Yeah.
story. Well, thank you so much for sharing it. Now, one of the notes I read in our pre-typing interview about your ability to have a conversation and get beneath the water, get to the lower end of the iceberg. Love that diagram. You see a small part of the iceberg above the
Right.
ocean and so much below it. So you get to the below the water level. How do you go out doing that? How do you have those kind of conversations?
Yeah. So I refer to those as what I call as power of one conversations. And the power of one conversation is built around this idea that through one conversation, we could have one idea that comes up between us. Hopefully, I'm sparking something with you. You're sparking something with me. Maybe the listeners, when they're hearing this podcast, have their own idea. And that engaged dialogue kind of triggers us something. And with that something, we choose an action. And the idea of that's how we get below the water line. Instead of staying at the surface, it's that we're intentionally focused on every opportunity has an opportunity for learn something, generate a new idea, and do something differently. And I think that really is an important kind of component to exploring self-awareness, movement, personal development for organizations. All just comes from this framework of intentionally mining for ideas and actions.
Thank you very much for sharing that explanation of how you get below the surface level. But that leads, I think, good transition is we talked about. I always ask my guests, what are the three practical things people should do after listening to our conversation? And that was number one. You kind of touched it there.
I
Leverage.
touched it too early.
So, if you, one, I'd love for you to share with our audience how you came up with this idea of the power of one and any other details on it, please.
Yeah. So my family plays an important part in my life. I already told you that my brother, kicked me into business because I was complaining and saying that I could do it better. But another message that came through loud and clear as a kid was my mom used to always say, Janine, never underestimate the power of one. It is the most powerful number. And I was a little kid and I would be like, sure, mom. Yeah, mom, just agreeing with whatever mom said. And eventually I got, middle school math, and she would still say, Janine, never underestimate the power of one. And I remember saying to her, Mom, power of one isn't very powerful. Like, it doesn't really do much. And she said, you just wait and see. You'll understand someday. And then I got to the point where early in my career, I had a leader. I went to my boss, Will, to complain about something. And very thoughtfully, he kind of just was like, okay, Janine, but next time you come in here, maybe you can come in with an idea, a recommendation, a thought for how to handle this. And at the time, I was kind of ticked off. Like, I went to him for help and I felt like he didn't help me. And over time, I realized he had helped me because he had set me up to be a person who just didn't complain about things, but look for ideas and solutions and recommendations. And that was when this concept really started to gel together. Mom had meant never underestimate the power of one person to make a difference, to be that person that kicks it off, becomes the domino, triggers the thing that happens, because it all really just starts back with the power of one. And so throughout my career, those blending of ideas and conversations started to generate things. And that was the conversational piece. We do things casually, conversation like this, right? But something plants, and then one day you realize and match it with this other idea that comes forward, and then when you take action on it, you begin to bend the arc and get somewhere more intentional rather than haphazardly falling into it. So now I really work with managers to think about that framework, and work with individuals to think about that framework that says, how am I constantly on the lookout from something that hit me emotionally? That's the emotional trigger of conversation and storytelling. How does that result into an idea? Or what new thing came to me as a result of that? And then what can I do with it? And sometimes it's not about addition, sometimes it's about subtraction. An idea of what is it that I can stop doing in order to be getting more of what I want.
Wonderful. So your first practical step is leverage the power of one conversation, one idea, one action at a time, and then the cumulative effect. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Point number one, leverage the power of one to change everything. I love that. And then the second practical step you wrote about was how to measure the ROTI, return on talent investment. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about how people are to measure that investment and its outcomes.
Yeah. So over the years, I would keep hearing from people the thing that frustrates me the most, which is training doesn't work. Training's boring. We sent people to training and nothing changed. And as someone who's in training and development, and that's kind of where I got started, is this learning and development space. I was so frustrated because I did know, and I believed in my core that it does help. Um, we wouldn't send kids to school if we didn't think that education and training and helping them grow and develop didn't work, right? And so it's just counterintuitive. We're humans, we're always learning, we're always growing. So what I realized is that we were measuring training and development oftentimes by return on investment, ROI, looking at things just through the lens of dollars and cents. And people are much more complicated than that. It's not as easy to say, I went to training, I got 3% more productivity. It's not a linear effect, a one-to-one relationship. And so I wanted businesses to really start to understand the more holistic perspective on how we can measure for the investment that we're putting into people. And so that's where my ROTI came from, the return on talent investment. How do I look at talent from a more holistic approach? Because when I start to measure it that way, it's different. And so the four components or lenses that I encourage people to look at it through are the what, the traditional dollars and cents of training investment. Are we retaining our people, and does and spend in Indeed ads go down because I don't need to hire as many people? I mean, that's a direct cost savings to a business to say, instead of spending $5,000 a year on AdWords, people are sticking around, right? So it's just like a very quick kind of way to look at it. We can look at the processes, the how things get done. Can we eliminate a process, make something more efficient? Can we come up with new procedures or new innovative ways that this training has helped them, and our investment in people has helped them and helped the business in some way? How are we doing things that are people oriented? Customer satisfaction surveys, employee engagement surveys, things that are one-to-one relationship. Do we have a stronger institutional knowledge base? Do people share with each other rather than hoard information? What does that look like? How can we begin to measure that? And then lastly, the big picture is the why, or the strategy. How does this help us grow and continue to achieve the future that we aspire towards? And I really believe that once we look at things from a more holistic way, we start to recognize the benefits and the power of small incremental changes in all areas of business. And then once you start to see it in that way, you can't stop seeing it. It's just
Well,
like, oh wow, it's everywhere. Yeah.
excellent. So your second practical step is learn how to measure the return on investment, return on talent investment, and the four dimensions are the what, the how, the who, and the why of those things.
Yes.
That's
Exactly.
point number two. And then your third practical step, you talked about engaging with your clients or your employees, current and new employees, to develop content. So please tell us a little bit more about that practical
Yeah.
step of engaging your people in education content.
Yeah. So one of the number one challenges that people come to me with is they say, Janine, we don't have a big budget, or we're a small business. How am I supposed to develop all of this information or get all of this information? We don't have enough people dedicated to do that. And I always say, start small and leverage your own people. So you're hiring talent, you are hiring people, you have talent, you have people who are working for you. Get them to develop that first wave of procedures, documentation policy, that PowerPoint presentations. If you have a customer service rep who is teaching a new customer service rep how to do the job, get them to record Zooms so that we can just have a catalog to begin to work with, right? So you're not doing this repeatable over and over again. That's kind of the first step, is getting them to help you with that. Second step is to leverage those new hires to build something new for the next group. So now that second CSR, for example, maybe their job is to build a FAQ database, all their questions that they've got, and they need to go out there and hunt down the answers, right? The process of them building the next thing, your next hire after that builds you something else, right? And so you keep leveraging experiences and learning opportunities to create the next thing for other people. And you start to catalog and develop all of that. It does a few things. One, it saves time because now the people who are training don't have to train all the pieces all over again. They've got some stuff to leverage. It helps the new hire or that new person synthesize the things that they are learning. And so it's like, okay, I thought I learned this today. I think I know how to do this. Let me apply it and try to practice it and come up with my own kind of cool and teaching techniques. So they're synthesizing the information, and it helps management or leadership, whoever it is, to look back at what they've created and go, oh yeah, they've got it. Like, yep, check. Or, oh, we're missing this. This is the part where they're making a mistake, or this is the part that isn't working, and getting to see the real-time gaps in there and correct and address those things. You send the person back and say, hey, I need you to re-record that Zoom because you made a mistake here at this step. So do it again. That replacement of practice and figuring out from what mistakes that they've made also strengthens the learning. So now I'm empowering everybody to take an ownership in their own experience, their own development, which is very important in the learning process. And I'm creating materials for future sustainability for an organization.
That sounds marvelous. So your third point is to get your people involved in developing the training content. Sounds like
Exactly.
kind of your variation of an appreciative inquiry.
It is,
Marvelous,
yes.
marvelous,
Yeah.
marvelous model. So I congratulate you on those absolutely three powerful points. We're going to highlight those in the videotape of this. So one last question. I know you like, as we both do, James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that book. And then you had another author that you wanted to recommend. Who is
Yeah.
that? Their content.
So the other author is Charles Duhigg. Interestingly enough, he has books around habit as well, the power of habit and smarter, faster, better. But his most recent book is called Super Communicators. And it's really all about communication skills and how they can be leveraged and harnessed and developed. And then one of the number one, probably the number one or number two ask I get when it comes to training and development of people as we need a communication program. Can you help us have better conversations? Can you help us improve our communication? Can you help us have the courage to have the difficult conversations? And I listened to this book, audiobook is really how I listen to them. And then I liked it so much, I bought it. And then I liked it so much, I sent it to multiple people in my life. So that's when I really know that a book has gotten under my skin, is when I send it with love notes to people like, I think you're going to love this book, enjoy, or congratulations on your graduation from college. Read this book, it's a game changer, right? I want to help you set out, on the right path. So Charles Duhigg would be the other recommendation.
Sounds like I'm going to have to visit Amazon later today and add another to my Kindle library. So, Ginine, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a wonderful opportunity to get to know you and learn about what you do. And I just encourage our listening audience today. We will have in our notes when we publish this your contact information. You are obviously a wonderful source of help for talent development. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. I look forward to hopefully engaging with some of your listeners and getting to meet them too.
Good. God bless.
Thanks. Thank you.
Now we've got 3 ideas of what to share from today's podcast. So again, what I'd like for you to be able to do is take those ideas, make them your own, reflect on them. What do they mean to you? And then thirdly, commit to an action plan. Commit to actions that you can take to apply what we've talked about today. If you want help, if you want some ideas, if you want some accountability, please contact me. Contact me by sending me a text, 913-306-1499. Put podcast follow-up in the text message, and I'll get back to you within 24 hours. Thank you so much for listening today, and I'll see you on our next broadcast.